things to invest in on Wednesday. We talked about hydro fuels. We talked about hydro plants, generators, uh, power line networks, um, construction that would help with the ability to transfer this energy through. So, we had a fantastic week on Wednesday. Now, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday is a little bit different. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we usually try to provide you guys um, ways to improve yourselves in your personal life, which allows you to um, make better decisions in your relationships, networking, the people that you allow to be around you versus the decisions that they make that you allow to happen that could impact you. We talk about those on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And then on Sunday, we have questions and comments from the fans. Now, today we're going to be talking about strategies to double your investments in 1 year and the possibility of that, as well as giving you guys the insight onto safer ways to be consistent about higher returns on your income. And this typically is something that could have run on a Tuesday night, but it is a more advanced position because your personal life requires you to plan. Your investment life requires you to take whatever you have left after you finish paying your bills and invest it. The planning phase in your personal life is a little bit different. And the planning phase in your personal life requires you to decide what money you're going to put where. And then if you're going to invest, then you're going to invest. So stay with me today because we're going to give you guys a lot of information to consider. And then after we give you the information that you need to consider, then we're going to provide you with some possible solutions that you can explore that could give you guys a different insight as to what to do and how to do it. Remember, it's a highly interactive podcast, but I have to stand on my non-negotiable expectations for behavior. So as I tell you guys that you are free to comment on the channel from all of the platforms that we have, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. I am strongly imposing upon the group that we stand on. Hold on, where's that button? Here he goes. I had the button. It was up here. I don't know where it went. There it is. Bloop. Now, non-negotiable expectations for behavior. I asked you guys that if you're going to comment on the show that you comment appropriately. So I'm going to ask you guys to not have negative comments in the comment section. We have individuals that are under the age of 18, and if they pop into the comment section, I don't want them to read things that are not appropriate. 2, you don't have to agree with me. Your opinion can be the complete polar opposite of my opinion. However, any objections that you have is not an attack on my character for delivering you the message. If you have facts and information that can completely and appropriately debate your position without trying to devalue me just because I said it, then by all means, we can run down that path. Anybody who decides that they want to attack my character, call me an idiot or something to that effect, simply because they disagree with my opinion, I'm blocking you. So Michael knows. As soon as a comment comes up that's directly calling somebody an asshole, they're probably going to come up missing out of the comment section. And then while we do have a few adult comments, that we do have a few adult jokes that does flurry around the comment section, we have a few people who deliberately come into the podcast and start dancing around religious content that is inappropriate. I appreciate you by coming onto the channel, telling me that Jesus loves me. Thank you very much. But I also believe that pushing religious beliefs onto the people, I don't think that is a good thing. He said, listen, these kids today could teach us a few words more. You're right. But the guidelines, the community guidelines for YouTube requires the moderator of the show, or at least the host of the show, to be responsible about the content in the show. And all it takes is for somebody's mom, Karen, to jump into the comment section and be like, look at this show, bad influence on. And then all of a sudden I come up missing like Fresh and Fit. because somebody decided to take the content that was in the comment section and put it up in the thing. So I got to be careful about some of the things that go across the screen. I got to be careful with some of the things that are in the comment section. He said, "Where did I lay that finger at?" You didn't, and that's what that's what I'm saying right now. I'm like, look, I'm gonna have to let these guys know. Like, look, if you don't do it, I will. So inappropriate comments, like the one comment that came up yesterday claiming that LGBTQ safe because I am an LGBTQ community, which is bro, chill out. Hey, not now. Really? Yup, you see, he's choking on some stuff. What did you eat? I'm trying to talk and you over here choking. Kibbles and bits? I don't even know. Either way, this is the 15 minutes of the show that gets edited out. Either way, okay. So like the guy that it was properly structured, implying that this is a safe place for us to talk freely, but it's not specifically because I affiliate with any group. I am definitely an independent. And because I am an independent, stop it. That's why you're choking in the first place. Go sit down. He listens better than women. So yeah, like I was about to say, this is a safe place for people to comment, but it's not because I affiliate with any specific groups. I do not affiliate with the LGBTQ community as a participant. While I do respect what they do, what they do doesn't impact me. It doesn't impact my money. So I just want to go in there and make that clear. So when we start seeing comments like that popping up into the comment section, yeah, I'm probably gonna block them as well. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that understanding that before we dive into tonight's show, that we're going to be acting as adults. Now, if you're on YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, you guys can comment. And those of you that see the link in the comment section, you can click that link, approve the mic, approve the camera, come onto the show in real time. You don't have to, but you can. And if you do, we'll be able to have some real-time discussions the way Dylan has come onto the show quite a few times and the way Jesse has come onto the show in recent times. So just make sure that you guys are dressed appropriately because you will have to be over the age of 18 to get onto the show, so that and appropriately attired so that you can be on the show. Now, if in the event, ladies, y'all decide that y'all want to dive on, I can't say much if the cleavage is a little bit lower than I would prefer, because not gonna lie, Mike, you can verify that if a chick jumps on the channel and she's got a lot of cleavage on there, we're probably gonna get 100,000 views that day. You asked me, is he pawing you? No, he wasn't pawing me. He was choking on whatever he ate earlier, because I actually cooked and I made him something to eat. He had like a beef stew. It was really good for him. And then he ate something else. And what he tries to do to get whatever he's choking on is to tear up something, swallow that, and then throw up both items at the same time. And I asked myself, where did you get that method from? Because like the only people who shove stuff in the back of their throat, let me stop. Let me stop. He didn't get that from me. Now, let's get started with tonight's show. Because doubling your money in a single year, it's the ultimate financial dream for a lot of people, right? And I gave you guys a dividend rotation strategy where you can get 168%, but doubling your money every year is a challenge. After everything is said and done, after taxation, after the losses that you get from your swing and your misses, a lot of times you might have about 75% return annually off of the dividend rotation strategy if you're not on an upswing in the market. Okay. And you have to decide if that's what you want to do, because if you're doing a dividend rotation strategy and you're getting the full taxation of your investment, that's a whole lot different than if you had a little bit of money or not a little bit of money, but a lot of money sitting still and still gaining those dividends. So we're going to be talking about the kind of return that could change your life wipe out your debt, and buy you freedom from a job that you hate. That's what we're going to be getting into today. They double your money in a couple of hours? No, not doubling your money in a couple of hours. Because in order to double your money in a couple of hours, that requires you to gamble. You're going to have to go to the casino and hit it big. You're going to have to be in a raffle and hit it big. And that is so slim of odds that it's unlikely for the average everyday person to achieve that. Well, purchasing tax liens is not going to double your money, because when you think about tax liens, purchasing a tax lien will hold the asset for a number of years, because they have up to 7 years to collect on 10 years to collect on it, and somewhere between 7 and 10 years, if they don't collect on it, you lose out on your investment. But if they foreclose on a property before that 7 to 10 year scenario happens, and you get it back, usually it's 18% is what happens, 18% per year. And if you want to maintain the primary position on that property, you would have to continue to pay the taxes on that property every year until the property is foreclosed upon. At some point after they have expired on their ability to pay, and the resurrection date or whatever that they call that passes, then in that particular moment, then you can foreclose on the property and you can claim the property on your own. But once you foreclose on a property, then you get the property, and that's when you double your money, because you have put your money on a real estate scenario that can turn in a tax deed state, not a tax lien state. In a tax lien state, you're not going to get anything unless the government shuts down the house and they seize the house from the other person, then you get the money back from the government. But in a tax deed state, you yourself, the investor of the tax lien, can get the money back off of the tax deed. So Washington State is 4 years to collect, but that's not what I was referring to. What I was referring to is the statute of limitations from the day the debt occurred until the day that you can no longer collect on the debt. There are certain scenarios where certain assets have a limitation of 3 years or 4 years related to medical bills or something to that effect. Credit cards, maybe, where you have exceeded the reclaiming statute of limitations of that state, where that particular debt is considered non-collectible, and that might be what you're referring to. I'm talking about the areas where even the government can't even collect money on this, and which actually 7 to 10 years is about the timeline that the IRS can no longer come after you for the oldest tax return that you have. They can audit you anytime within 10 years of that last filed tax return for the last 10 years. And if they don't, on the 11th year, you're safe from the filing that you did 11 years ago. So if you have a mistake from 11 years ago, you ain't got to worry about it. But if you got a mistake from 9 years ago, you got 2 years left. Okay, you're talking about when a property hasn't been paid, it goes up for auction. Yes, but if you have a lien on it where you have paid the taxes on the property, it doesn't go up for auction. It only goes up for auction if the taxes were not paid on the property and no one has a claim on it. Because how can I pay the taxes on this property for 2 or 3 years, and now that they have completely defaulted on it, the government is going to take the property and auction it off to somebody else? No, it goes to the person who already has it. But if nobody has put any money on this property and the taxes needs to be collected, then the government will auction it off to the highest bidding to an auction online. That's where that happens. You have until the auction date, but you have from the day that they notify you that they're going to auction off your property until the day that your property gets auctioned off to pay it. If you pay it before they put your property up for auction, then you're in the clear. If you don't pay it, then your property gets auctioned off, which, might I add, is a pretty good strategy to find individuals whose properties are subject to be auctioned off that want their properties, which is a lot of cold calls, but you can put yourself in a contract with them where, including the cost of the cost of court and the cost of filing and the cost of putting a lien on a property, you can put up a tax lien contract with them where you directly contract with the person, give them the money to pay for the taxes on the house, and then put a lien on the house for that amount, of the amount of the contract. And if something happens where they default, then when the property gets auctioned, your lien gets paid before the other person gets the property, where you don't have to hold the property at all. But the lien, reasonably supported by the paperwork, is a property lien that has to be satisfied before somebody else can control the property. But yes, each state is different, and you just got to go and do your homework. So, Michael's right about that. I would be more inclined, if I was going down that path, to put my time and effort towards tax deed states. And the reason why I would go towards tax deed states is because if you go towards tax deed states, you are likely to have the end result of claiming the property if they don't pay. In a tax lien state, you have no opportunity to claim the property, and if they don't claim the money, you can potentially lose out on the money. So you want to lean to the tax deed state. He said if your taxes are not paid, it goes to auction at 11% annual times 4 years. That's a good amount. So if your property has like $1,000 worth of taxes, it'll be 11% times 4 years. So what? $4,400. So if you were paying that pay, that's $4,400. Or if it's 11% of the 1,000, that would be like $110 times 4 years, which would still be like $440. But somewhere in there, it's a percentage of what you would have gotten after you put your money up for it. He said neighbor didn't pay his taxes owed $16,000, sold for $40,000. The value is $200,000 for 15 acres. Yeah, you could get some pretty good property. So if you had the 40 grand to buy that $200,000 property, you could have easily took out a mortgage on that property for 100 grand, got your $40,000 back, put $60,000 into the property for repairs, sold the property for $300,000, and made a massive profit off of it, which is what real estate investors do. We're going to be getting to those towards the middle of the show, towards the back end of the show. Is they put it back on the market for a quick sell at $160,000. Well, if you don't want to do a rehab on it, you could do that. That would be a good idea. You could just take the 200 grand and put it up for 160,000, and sell it for no less than 140,000, and you could keep the difference where you're making at least $100,000 profit off of it. That would work. And that requires little to no effort. And with that $100,000 profit and the $40,000 you get back, that would give you the ability to invest in some more properties. But depending on what kind of property it was, it might have been a good idea. Greetings, John. Good to see you again. It might have been a good idea, like John is saying, to hold it, because you could do a lot with 15 acres. You could build on it, turn it into a subdivision, because with a $200,000 piece of property, you could hold it, and then you could leverage it for 200 grand. Well, or not 200 grand. You could probably leverage it for like 100 grand or 150 grand, and use that 150 grand and build a second house on the property. And then after you build a second house on a property, you rent out both properties, you could then build a third house on the property. And you could just keep doing that until you have a subdivision there. You could do that. Or depending on what the property was designed for, you could use that property for, if it was a farmland, you could use that property to farm on. You could lease the land out to other industries that want to utilize the land for something else, like solar or anything to that effect. There's a lot of stuff you can do with the property if you keep it. But if you were just trying to get you some extra money, you could pick it up on a foreclosure. You can pick it up on a tax seizure, and then you can put it back out there on another area of um, profit. It's just another way to go. He said land is going to be worth its weight more than gold soon. Yeah, you're right, because we're going to run out of properties. So it's good to hold it. If you sell it and flip it, it's easy money right now. But if you buy it and hold it, you've got properties that used to be worth $32,000 that's worth $320,000 right now. If you buy it and hold it, if you're in your 30s or 40s and you buy it and hold it for 10 or 15 years, like I said, you could leverage the property. That's not your primary homestead, so you could mortgage the property and then use that mortgage for the property to pay yourself back the 40 grand that you put towards the house, and then rent the property out. And now you've got the tenant paying for the mortgage, you got reimbursed for the loan, and then you can put the rest of the money towards something else. And matter of fact, technically, if you really wanted to go that route, if you got back off of the $200,000 house $100,000 mortgage, and you use that $100,000 mortgage to go buy into another tax lien situation, you could probably buy 2 or 3 more $40,000 houses, which could lead you into a scenario where you can then start buying into it. Well, you jump straight into it. You can start buying apartment complexes, but people who start off with their first one house with their first $140,000 stack of cash, they don't just immediately dive straight into buying apartment complexes, because apartment complexes are usually closer to $1 million or more. And not nobody, but the average American that lives paycheck to paycheck does not have 20% to put towards $1 million investment. The average American does not have 30% to put towards $1 million investment. So we have to think about scaling up from your first investment opportunity to your commercial investment opportunity, from picking up that first house at 40 grand to flipping that to a scenario where you have 10 or 15 or 20 houses. You can't go from owning your own house to owning a apartment complex with just the equity on your house as the collateral to go and get the other thing, unless you have a $500,000 house that you inherited from somebody else, which would only give you like $300,000. So, and that would leverage towards the $1 million property, at which you would then need somebody to give you more capital to put towards the renovations of the property, and that's a whole nother stack of cash. And typically renovations are close to around $50,000 a unit, $50,000 a home. And if you have 15 or 20 homes, you're looking at another $1 million. Well, at least $1.5 million that you're going to be putting towards renovating all of the properties and then filling it up with tenants. Now, yeah, it'll be generated, regularly generated capital, but it's a building stage. You don't go from your first investment of $40,000 towards a home to magically having 400 grand to put towards $1 million real estate investment opportunity. That's like a once in a lifetime thing. You would more likely be able to do that if you took that 40,000, put it towards that house, rebuilt that $200,000 value, increased its value to 255, sold it for 300,000, and then took the 300,000 and put it all on that $1 million house, and then you would be able to have it with that $140,000 investment. But again, it's still a stair-stepping situation. It's not going to be a broad leap from one side to the other side. It doesn't work that way. Why you have us moving the $10 to I have you guys paying attention to all of the different ways that we can invest. But since you started that straw man topic, I wanted to kind of tiptoe into it before I get back to the main topic as to ways that we could potentially have higher growth power with our annual salaries. I just wanted to make sure that while you were putting information into the comment section, that I clarify some of that information with the facts that I've obtained over the years. Because I live in America on an American budget. I'm broke. Yeah, you know that's right. They're not called homes, but doors. Well, okay, hold on. The slang for a real estate investor would call them quote unquote doors, because it doesn't matter if it's every door that opens is a tenant that's paying rent. So in that scenario, you're thinking you have single family homes where it's a group of people that lives in one location. You have apartment complexes, which are different units, different doors that people live in. And then you have office spaces where different businesses come out of different doors that also rent from you. And the terminology doors implies every location that has a paying tenant in it. But I'm referring to specifically homes because we started this conversation with tax liens and tax deeds, which are typically on single family homes or multifamily homes that have not paid their uh, uh, their taxation. There are businesses and commercial properties that have not paid taxes as well, but more often than not, you see the single family home, the trailer, the apartment complex that did not pay its taxes. Okay. Then you have all the other ways that you can do it. And I was telling you how to go from having one to getting many because you don't start. Most of us that's watching the show right now today won't come out of pocket with whatever they have in their wallet right now and be able to take that and go straight to a buy an apartment complex idea. You go from realistically uh, taking your day-to-day extra money and putting it towards an investment opportunity, and then you dive completely into like a mass experienced investment opportunity, and that those two scenarios are far away from each other. Picking up your first house on a tax lien or a tax deed versus picking up your first house in a foreclosure or an auction, that is far away from getting involved in your first commercial property where you have 10 or 15 apartment complexes under your belt. Those two scenarios happen far away from each other. You start with the first location and then you build up to the multi-unit location. That's what I was referring to. So that depends on living within your means, learning needs versus wants. And that's what we were going to be talking about today, which was where we were going to be putting our money at. You say cut the fat and you don't have to spend so much on living. Well, that's true. That's one of the things I've talked about on the show quite a few times as well, is that if we do not waste a lot of our time and effort on frivolous spending on things that have no value, whether we're doing it to show off for other people, doing it to entertain ourselves unnecessarily, like 30 different subscriptions for 30 different services, and we only use Netflix, you know, you could do away with the ones you don't use. Those of us that have a gym membership that we never use, we could just uh, get rid of that. And he asked me, what's tonight's subject today? So tonight's subject was supposed to be strategizing and evaluating ways to double your investment in 1 year. Okay, which is completely different from simply just going into real estate. Starting from a realistic perspective, going into a broad scale scenario. If you think about your annual salary, you're thinking about how you're going to double that money and what ways you can go about doubling that money without the guarantee of losing it. Because I mean, there's going to be a lot of risk. The more risk you put into it, the more you're going to gain if you gain, but the more risk you put into it, the higher the likelihood that you could lose everything you put into it. Is that Americans spend at least $500 a month just in entertainment industry, subscriptions, Netflix, Hulu, cell phones, and direct TV and cable. Actually, that's a good assessment, but you think about this, it's more to the magnitude of closer to $1,500 a month. Because when you start talking about entertainment industry, you're forgetting that we do have a level of self-medicating entertainment, including cigarettes and alcohol, clubs and everything to that effect. And that doesn't even include the dating phase, where men are expected to court the women by entertaining the women. And all of this we've calculated could lead up to about $50,000 a year worth of entertainment stuff that is not related to your standard finances, your standard requirement for survival. But it gives you the sense of feeling that you have a pretty good lifestyle. You're spending up to $50,000 a year out of your total income on not your needs. Yeah, we calculated that. So that's Good idea. Purchase your first home from tax auction. Exactly. $20, $30 a trip just in the morning. Convenience stores was a start. Starbucks, okay. Amazon, yes sir. Yeah, yeah. And we oh, we haven't even got to the what entertainment crazy. No, it's true. Think about this, because we talked about this before. We talked about this before. Um, you think about your average case of beer is like upward of $25 a case. When you talk about like the 18 and 24 pack of Bush, some people are buying at least a case a day. Some people are buying like 3 or 4 cases a week. You have the people that are buying more expensively, the 6 pack of bottles, depending on what it is, whether it's Heineken, Stella, something like that. That's still almost $20 a pack, and you're buying 2 of those a day, and you're still looking at almost $50 to $100 a day for alcohol. And if you're keeping a level set of that, you're anywhere between 140 and $200 a week on just the alcohol. Individuals that buy cigarettes are buying cigarettes at upward of $10 a pack right now. And if you're getting a carton, you're spending almost $120 a carton on cigarettes. And some people that smoke 4 cartons a month are looking at upward of $480 worth of cigarettes. Now, if you're doing $480 worth of cigarettes and you're doing about $140 a week worth of alcohol, and you multiply that by 4, you're looking at like 560 more dollars. So you're looking at closer to, just on cigarettes and alcohol, closer to $1,000 a month. That's not the people that buy weed at 60. What is it? What is it nowadays? Like $80 to $120 an ounce, 3 ounces a week. That's not that. That's not that. um, then when we think about what we talked about before, like you said, almost $500 worth of subscriptions and gym memberships and everything to that effect, now you're over that $1,500 mark, just like I said. And then when you start factoring in those dates, when you're taking girls out between 1 to 5 times a month, you're spending anywhere between $100 to $300 a night. You're spending almost $900 a month taking these girls out. And you add that to it, you're upward of $2,200. And I'm trying to tell you, like, this stuff adds up. This stuff adds up. Then when you start taking into consideration when you're bailing out a friend and everything to that effect, your standard of expenses versus your core standard of living are far away from one another. So when you shave off the frivolous spending, the impulse buys, the gifts that you buy for all of the people in your family that you don't like, hoping that they'll get you a gift in return, all of that stuff, worthless stuff. It's stuff that does not turn you a profit. It's stuff that you do not benefit for. It gives you a minimalistic, euphoric experience the moment that it's happening. But after that, it kind of loses its value. It loses its swing, you know. And that's why I wanted to touch base on those. He said $150 a month in pot. I know people that spend, and broke all the time. Yeah. MJ is on my spot. Moderation and discretion. We need to figure out how to utilize more discretion. Our bills are $2K a month, and food bills and payments and travel, trailer. Right. But I can tell you right now that I can spend about $1,300 a month and not need anything else. If I throw food on top of that, $1,700 a month and not need anything else. So the rest of the money that would be coming in can be utilized for something else if it is not wasted on things that are not relevant. As it makes $5,000 or more a month, which means that you got like $3,000 extra dollars a month that could be going towards something else. But it's not. It's going on gifts. It's going on. Only reason why I'm happy is knowing I'm debt free. Being debt free doesn't necessarily be the foundation of being happy. Being debt free means that you don't owe anybody any money, but that doesn't mean that you're not still broken. It doesn't mean that you're not still hard up. Just because you don't have any loans outstanding and you don't have any credit cards that aren't being requiring payment, back payment, or anything like that, doesn't mean that you're better off than the individuals that have revolving lines of credit, that are rolling over debt and maximizing their borrowing power in order to expand their lifestyle. It just means that if in the event that you don't have an income, you don't have anything to worry about because all your stuff is paid for. That's the only difference between what you've got going on and with other people who leverage debt for a tax blanket to maximize income without taxation. That's the only difference. So a billionaire that has $1 billion worth of debt and $1,000,001 worth of capital, that person is living a better lifestyle than the rest of us. And if we're debt free, and we're over here talking about how we got like $2,000 or less worth of standard of living, we're living at under $24,000 a year. And that billionaire's $1 billion worth of debt is living a way better lifestyle than what we're living. So being debt free does not make much of a difference. The only difference is that if your money stops coming in, you don't owe nobody. That billionaire's money stops coming in, he's going to have $1 billion worth of assets being seized. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. Right. So he's paying $1,000 a month on a new truck. 2 more payments, he's going to save $1,000 a month. It gives me happiness knowing I'm not getting phone calls from collection agencies, which you cannot get phone calls from collection agencies by making advance payments on your debt. That's oh no, we're always supposed to be broke on paper, even though we live a rich lifestyle. We're supposed to be broke on paper. Because why do we want to be rich on paper? So that they can start taxing us for the money that we make. That's not the goal here. My old road truck's transmission took a dump after I replaced 4 rear ends, so it took on debt through a friend for a larger diesel truck. But if you still own that original truck, you can always fix that original truck with the extra money that you have and have it as a backup, so that when your new truck has to go to the shop for regular maintenance, it doesn't necessarily have to break down. You can just put it in the shop for preventative maintenance. You have a backup vehicle that you already own if you didn't trade it in, and utilize that one to hold the fort down for the next 3 to 5 days while your truck is in the shop. Then when your main truck comes back, you can put this one back on the bricks and you ain't got to worry about nothing. And funny thing about truck and trailer situations, while they're supposed to have registration and insurance on them, ain't nobody checking license plates they can't see. So it's not like you're going to get pulled over because your truck hauling something. They can't see the plates. They don't know. Because I know my friend has a lift at his shop in the 30-acre ranch, and he's done all the maintenance on it forever. No, that doesn't change the fact that if you have one truck that broke down and you bought a new truck, if your new truck needs maintenance and you still have possession of the old truck, even if your homeboy can fix the new truck for you, you still need a truck to drive while the other truck is in the shop. That is preventative maintenance. You don't want to miss a day from work because you got to work on the new truck. It doesn't matter if you're changing oil, changing tires, changing brakes, or doing something more major. If you can drop the new truck off and take the old truck out one day out the week and then come back and pick up the new truck and go back to regular business, you don't miss a day of your life. That's what I'm talking about. It's always good to have a spare. Because I do my own mechanics. Right. And when you start leveraging your assets a little bit better, you will find that instead of you spending all day working on your truck, you can pay somebody else to work on your truck, and then you can spend more time making more money with the other truck since you've got more than one truck. And the extra money that you're making by not sitting there working on your own truck will allow you to pay for the guy that's working on your truck, which gives you more time to do more work in more places. It's maximizing because you can't be everywhere at once. Yeah, I know. You told me that you're a tradesman. You told me that. You told me that in the last show. But you have to understand that you cannot be your own boss and your only employee at the same time and think that you're going to scale up to retirement. You are doing it on your own because you can. But you want to take on quite a few apprentices that knows how to do it as good as you, if not better than you, so that they can start taking over. You want to be able to pass this on to somebody else where it's still making money, where you can still get paid off of it and not have to do it anymore. You're going to reach a point in your life where you're physically not capable of doing the manual labor work that you have to do. And you want to still be able to generate revenue so that you don't have to worry about where your money's coming from. Right now, you're living from paycheck to paycheck. And when those paychecks stop, you're going to need money from somewhere. If you're setting yourself up for a scenario where you have more money coming in than what you need, you will never need to go back to work again, as long as that money is consistently coming in. My old truck is a half ton. It could be a whole ton. Doesn't matter. You've got a new truck. You still have possession of the old truck. If one truck needs to go to the shop, the other truck can put in work. Since you're one person with two vehicles, only one of them needs to be used at a time, and then you can make it work. Residual income. That's what I'm trying to explain to them. Newer truck is a 2004 GMC 3500 4x4, which is good. But that also means that the old truck was getting the job done. So all you got to do is just put it aside, fix it, put it aside, and then when you need to do something to the new truck, you got to back up. That's all I'm saying. Always have a spare. Always have a spare. You don't just have when we think about always have a spare, we only think about only having a spare tire. But when you think about having a spare tire, what do you do with a full-size spare? You're going to get you a whole extra rim that you don't need right now. You put a brand new tire on it that you're not going to use right now. You put it in your vehicle and you keep it until you get a flat tire, and then you take the tire that you've been sitting on for this whole time and put it to work. And take the tire that's no longer usable and put it in the back of the truck until you can take it to a place to get the tire replaced. But since you have an extra tire on the vehicle, you don't have to sit at the tire place and wait on them to fix a tire. You can drop the tire off, keep working, come back, pick up the tire later today, and now you have the tire, the extra tire, without having to miss out on work. The whole dynamic that I'm trying to explain to you right now is that all you have to do is put one on the road and park one. That's it. Is that it requires lots of money to fix now. Well, if the vehicle is that bad off, again, because your occupation depends upon the functionality of your vehicle, you still need a second one. So if it's cheaper for you to go buy you a third and scrap the first one, then scrap the first one and go buy you one more vehicle so that you have a backup. The whole premise of this is get a backup. That's the whole premise of this. No matter how you rationalize it, get you a backup vehicle so that when your primary vehicle needs to be worked on, you're not the one working on it. You're making money using the backup vehicle. That's all you got to do. No, the old truck 7500 doesn't change anything. My scenario is still the same. Remember to like and subscribe. Get you a backup because you work with your vehicle. If your vehicle's down, you're fixing it instead of working. Get you a backup and use the backup when the primary needs to be repaired, whether it's regular service or major repair. When the primary vehicle needs to be replaced, you have a backup. That's all you got to do. Doesn't matter. He's talking about PCI modules, transmissions. Doesn't matter. If you can't afford to fix the old one and the old one costs too much money to fix, go buy you a second truck, because you can go buy you a used truck for $4,000 and you can have you a backup. The goal is having a backup. I'm going to say it like 30 times. Get you a backup so that you don't have to stop working if your truck breaks down, and use the backup when your truck breaks down. Even if your truck doesn't break down, if it needs regular maintenance, get you a backup. This is how hard it is to teach people how to balance their lives. I spent 10 minutes saying, get you a backup. He said, I got a car for a backup. So the car is going to be towing the stuff that the truck is towing. Because if the car is towing the stuff that the truck is towing, then you don't need to get nothing else. But if the car can't pull what the truck is pulling, again, I tell you, get you a backup, because your car is not your work vehicle. That's all I'm saying. He said, buy a used truck from 1970. Yeah, you can get you a 1970 or 1980s or 1990s pickup truck. Yeah, you can get whatever you got to get. You can get, like I said, you can get your truck. And since you're the only one working, you don't got to get a 4x4 with 4 doors and all that stuff. You can get you a 2-door pickup. As long as it's capable of hauling the stuff that you haul with your primary truck, you can get you a two-door pickup. And the older the vehicle is, the cheaper it's going to be. And since it's ideally supposed to be the backup, it does not have to be brand new because it is only going to be used when the primary truck is not in use, which means that you might use your primary truck 300 days out of the year, and then the backup truck might only be used 65 days out of the year when you're working on a primary truck, which means that that one truck, the backup, is not going to put nearly as many miles as the primary truck. Again, get you a backup. Yeah, I did it with the car at times. All right. When the axle breaks on a car, you're going to need a backup. Now, back to the main topic of the show today, because if you guys talk to people who've actually done this, the ones who have genuinely pulled it off, a 100% return in 12 months, they'll tell you it was one of the most terrifying experiences that they have ever done in their lives. They'll tell you about the sleepless nights, staring at their phones until their eyes burned, and a constant grinding anxiety that felt less like investing and more like standing on edge of a cliff, wondering when they were going to fall, right? Today, we're going to be pulling back yet another curtain on the intoxicating and dangerous idea of having a 100% return on your annual income. So I'm going to show you guys the high stakes, high risk strategies that can, under very specific and lucky set of circumstances, generate those 100% returns. And this isn't the sanitized version that you hear from online gurus, though. This is the brutal, honest truth. He says, I know and agree, and we'll get another backup truck at some point. Yeah, at some point. And hopefully it's done before the primary truck needs to be serviced. Because remember, since you're putting all those miles on that primary truck, you're going to have to service the transmission. Just flushing out the transmission oil, that's a day that the truck doesn't work. When you're doing a full oil change, that's a half a day that the truck is not working. When you're changing out the brakes and rotors and stuff, that's a half a day that the truck is not working. And anything, including accidental punctures of the radiator or anything to that effect, these are things that don't take that long. And it's while you can do it, you can be very, very capable of taking care of yourself. The millionaire mindset is not how do I do everything on my own. The millionaire mindset is how do I leverage my assets in order to get somebody else to do some of the stuff that I don't have time to do so that I could put more time towards making more money for myself. If I got somebody else putting in work for me so that I can bring in way more money than I would have brought in being distracted by that action, I now made enough money to pay for the help and still increase my profits. If I can pay for the help and increase my profits, I've got somebody getting my groceries, running my business, cleaning my house, cooking my food, driving me around, and all I'm doing now is focused on making more money because everybody else is doing the other things around the house that I don't have to do anymore. That's what I'm trying to tell you. They just got to pay the new one off. Well, yeah, because $1,000 a month is a lot of money. So you probably 2 months after you pay off, you said you got two or three more payments left at $1,000 a month. After that, you might want to wait 3 or 4 months and just take that extra $4,000 and just go buy another truck cash up front. And then you don't got to worry about it. Because if you can buy one cash up front and you don't have to make payments, that will be better. But if you can put $4,000 down and get you like $300 a month payments on the second truck, you now have two vehicles and you have a $700 less monthly installment that you have to pay on vehicle notes, but you have an extra vehicle that you can utilize. And that's what I was talking about. Actually, the transmission was revealed 25,000 miles ago, and the brakes are not due for several thousand miles. My engine oil is changed next 12,000 mile intervals, but that doesn't change the fact that the data that has to get done, you need to have a second truck available for you to get it done. That way you don't have to stop working. That's the key point. Just because you got you've got a whole plan and everything is working the way you want it to work, except you do not have a guaranteed second vehicle so that when you have to take your primary off the road for regular maintenance, you don't have a backup. That's all I'm pointing out. If you know that you don't have a spare tire on your vehicle, no matter how you work it out, if you get a flat, you still don't have a spare. So when I said you need a spare, you're saying I agree. That's where we are. You need a spare. No matter how excellent your truck is, no matter how you plan this out, you know the day you go to service your truck is the day you're not going to work. That's what you know. Now, what I know is that if you wanted to make money on the day that you're servicing your truck, you're going to have a second truck there so that you can go to work while your truck is in the shop. That is the difference between where you are and where you could be as far as being successful. That no facts that you can give me can change that concept. Again, doing your own maintenance on the weekends means that you're not working and you're working on your truck. When you could be working on something else, not working on your truck, and someone else could be working on your truck, and you could be making money somewhere else. You don't, but you could be resting. You could be resting. You could be working on your real estate investments, your stock option investments, gold and silver investments. You could be working on advertising for more business for during the week. You could be setting up a website so that you can get more traffic for your job, so that you have more traffic. You could be reaching out to companies that do what you do that are still operational on the weekends, and network yourself and subcontract into more deals so that you got more work to do. You can go from being a Monday to Friday self-served business to being a 7-day a week corporation. You could go from being a one guy show to being a full on 24/7 operation if you take your weekend, spend more time trying to expand on what you have. You could be training new people on the weekend so that they can do what you do, so that they can go during the week, so that you don't gotta go. Simple as that. You can't go on vacation without putting your business on hold until you get back. You cannot set up a second source of income unless you take time off from your first source of income. And the only way you're going to do that is if you spend your weekends not working on your truck, paying somebody else to work on your truck, so that you can take your free time to expand, so that you have more people there, so that your money is coming in while you're not there. Switch from the worker mentality to the owner mentality. Because what boss says, I got to go to work? That boss says, call in John so that John can cover the shift, because I don't want to go to work. I don't advise people just want me to work constantly by word of mouth. I haven't invested in anything other than ammo. Okay, so you can expand your business beyond word of mouth by advertising to a larger market in your area, which will bring you in more business, which will bring you in more money, which will bring you in enough money to pay somebody else to work on your truck. Again, it is your choice to improve yourself. You can stay the way you are because you're comfortable with that. You've got your routine. You don't want to change it. I see that. But if you wanted to make it better, what you would do is find ways to improve, expand, and automate. Improving means bringing in more customer base. Expanding means bringing in more workers. Automating means you no longer do that work. When you add that to your mindset, you will be figuring out ways to get that done. And the first step is to get the mechanics to work on the truck for you, so that you can spend more time advertising, so that you can bring in more money, so that you can hire more workers, so that you can train them to do the work, so that you can work less, so that you can bring in more contracts, so that you can hire a secretary to bring in more contracts, so that you can only work on payroll, so that you can make enough money to hire somebody to work on payroll to do what? Watch the business run itself. Now you're making one phone call, talking to the person at the top of the ladder, making sure that that person can explain to you why the numbers ain't right. You go from being the worker to being the owner. But it just takes time and effort. That's what it takes. I'm a late learner when it comes to the future planning. The first thing you got to do is you got to break out the shell of believing that the way you're doing it is the only way. Once you break out of that shell, you will find yourself in a position where you can do more. You start thinking, I just gave you spend 40 minutes on telling you another way that you can do your operation better. And that's the first step. Once you pay off your first truck, go buy you a backup. With that backup, you got two things going for you. Because even if you wanted to keep working on your trucks yourself, if you got a backup, now you got two trucks, which means you can hire a second worker. Now you got twice as much work being done in the same day, which means you can make enough money to pay the workers. When you've got to work on your own truck, the other guy can go out and make money for you, and you still got money coming in. Either scenario, you're still expanding. But it requires you to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, it's not going to happen. No matter how many ideas I give you, if you don't want to do it, it's not going to happen. Now, we have other situations that turn up. More importantly, I'm going to show you guys a much smarter and much safer way to get to that rich experience that the get rich quick promoters don't want you guys to talk about. Because while they're selling you a lottery ticket, I want to give you guys actual blueprints. I tell you guys the step-by-step way to go from where you are to where you could be. We're not on two separate sides of the cliff and telling you, oh, it's better on this side. I'm going to tell you how to build the bridge to get here. Now, if you want to walk that bridge, it's up to you. But if you don't, no, I could spend 4 more hours explaining how you can be a better you, and you still stay the same way you are right now 10 years from now. It is up to you to find ways to improve yourself. So let's get into it. Now, to be honest, the idea of doubling your money in a year is more than just a financial goal. It is a powerful fantasy. It is the thought of paying your student loans off, not in 10 years, but by next Christmas. In the vision of quitting your job to travel the world, not when you're 65, but right now. And it is the dream of looking at your bank account and seeing a number so big, it finally feels like a shield against all the unnecessary and uncertain things that happens in the world. Hold on, guys. He says, being out of work for 2 weeks from a fractured foot was kind of a wake-up call that I'm not immortal anymore, so I'm learning. Well, specifically because you told me that you broke your foot a couple of weeks ago was the reason why I'm telling you to automate this. Because while yes, you have the income that'll come from your ex-wife when that starts coming in, and you have the income that was coming in when you whatever residual left over from when you was working. If you end up not being able to work for 6 months, you do not have a reoccurring income coming in. Now you have a problem. If your standard of living is subsidized by your wife's income and she ends up moving out and going somewhere else, guess what happens? You don't have an income. You have to figure out a way to make this operation work without you, so that money is happening without you, so that you can get paid without having to do anything. Because that foot is going to be a pain in your ass this time next year. The cold, the rain, that foot is going to be the reason why you don't want to get out of bed, especially if it's your driving foot. Especially if it's your driving foot. No, I know you back to work. You told me you went back to work with a fucked up foot. It's painful climbing the ladder while it's healing, right? But you're climbing the ladder while it's healing instead of being able to stay home and let it heal, because you do not have the operation running on its own. And do what you got to do to keep your money coming in, but you gotta understand that you've got to figure out a way to take yourself out of the equation by replacing yourself with somebody else that's just as good, if not better. That way you can stay at home and rest. I broke a foot and a hand. Went back to work 3 months after. Soon as the bone had fused together, foot ain't been the same since. And I broke that foot when I was 18. I'm 41 now. Foot ain't been the same since. Hand ain't been the same since. You know, if I would have had somebody else putting in work for me, I would have been able to take more time off and take that 18 months to let myself heal up, and probably would have been better than what I am right now. But because I did not do that, that's the reason why I got to deal with the consequences of my decisions. I drove home from the hospital on my broken foot too. Right. Because you don't have somebody else to drive you home. Start putting people in place of responsibility so that you can be less responsible for the day-to-day operations. I need to teach youngins how to work instead of manual labor. Right. There you go. Now you're learning. I'm 44. So 3 years older than me. And I found a way to stop having to leave the house to get paid. And you have to find a way to automate your business so that you don't have to leave every day to get paid. Now back to the other gentleman, because I don't want him to think I had ignored him. He said, brother, you said you were gonna pick me up. There we go again with that foolishness. I am not gonna. Okay, I'm gonna put this back up here. I am not going to pick up nobody from nowhere, and the reason why is because if you're in urgent care, it is because you did not listen to me. This means that I am going to continue streaming. If you are waiting on me from the last time you put this post up 4 days ago, you will live at urgent care. I will not come get you because you and I are not on the same page, because my homies know that if you're not dying, if your internal organs are not externally out of your body, I am not going to get you. Yeah, you can catch a cab, get you an Uber, get you a Lyft. I'm not, what, didn't I tell y'all I only spend, 20 miles a week? 20 miles round trip? And I already spent that 20 miles on Thursday. I am not going nowhere else till next week, Thursday. So if you are waiting on me to get you from urgent care, you are going to be waiting. Because I ain't coming to get you. I'm not coming to get you. Now, we understand that this desire to get amplified by everything around us. We scroll through social media and see stories, all kinds of stories, or at least claims of people turning thousands of dollars into hundreds of thousands of dollars with a meme coin. We see headlines about stocks that went to the moon overnight, like the SMX stock that we were just talking about that went from $34 to $340. It creates a powerful sense of FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. It whispers in your ear, everyone else is getting rich, and why aren't you? You're just one smart move away, right? And this feeling is a potent psychological trigger that get rich quick schemes have preyed on for centuries. Excuse me, they sell your hope packaged as a secret strategy. They never tell you what the secret is, but they make you spend a bunch of money to get to the secret. Then when you get to the secret, you find out you could have came to this podcast and I would have told you that same information for free. Probably already said it 8 times and it's running live on the show. All you have to do is just go watch the video on it. He said, so many start off with crypto? No. Crypto is the most volatile one to be in. For an individual that's a slow learner towards this, your best bet is to start off with cash stocks, cash dividend paying stocks, because you can buy and hold the stock. You don't have to trade it every week like I do. You can buy and hold the stock and it will pay you a percentage. Matter of fact, I have a list of stocks that we follow. I have to update the values of them, but these are the list of stocks that we follow. If you look into each one of these, you can grab the cheapest ones. And I'm telling you this because there's about 50 stocks up here. Most of them are cash paying stocks. Some of them are growth stocks, which are stocks that do not pay cash dividends, like Tesla. And if you get 10 of the cheapest stocks with the highest dividend payouts, these are the most undervalued ones on the market. And if you're watching me from the 16 by 9 is right here. Well, no, 16 by 9 is here. 9 by 16 is up here. You will be able to have money generate monthly revenues for you that you can then utilize to offset your requirement to go to work. Then you can take the dividends from that money and you can invest in other things if you like, such as gold or silver, precious minerals, You can invest in crypto if you wanted to, but crypto is a highly volatile scenario that I would recommend less than 10% of your total financial portfolio goes into. If you're trying to expand your business, you could take all of the extra money that you're not putting on your truck after you buy your first truck, and you can put that money into a stock option. And this time next year, you can take the dividends off of the money that you're making and put that towards the truck note, where the $600 or $700 a month or $1,000 a month that you're getting off your stock option can pay for your truck, so that your annual salary is paying for your standard of living instead of paying for your second truck. There's a lot of things that you can do when you start putting your money away, but if you start with stocks, that is the easiest way to go. If you want to switch from stocks and have you a stock portfolio that's paying dividends, use those dividends to get CDs, use those dividends to get treasury bonds. And then as those things mature, you can take the mature bonds and invest them in something else and continue to expand your portfolio. It is easier to start off by putting your money in a place where it pays you to put your money there. And then you can either do one of two things. You can take the money that they pay you and add it back in as the principal, or you can take that as a payment and use it to subsidize your standard of living. But there's never a scenario beyond that that is easy to do for a person who does not know what they're doing. Now, to understand just how absurd a 100% return in a year is, we need to ground ourselves in a simple, time-tested financial rule that is called the Rule of 72. It is a handy mental shortcut to estimate how long it takes for an investment to double. You just divide the number 72 by your annual rate of return, your annual interest rate of return. For example, the historical long-term average of return of the S&P 500 stock option is between 9 and 10% range per year. So using the rule of 72, if you divide 72 by the top end, which is 10%, that gives you 7.2 years that your money would double. This means that even with a solid historically proven investment, you're looking at an average of over 7 years to double your money, not 1 year. So if you put your money in a high yield savings account, earning, let's be gracious, 5% interest, it would take you almost 7 years to double the money. If you're using the stock options that I'm telling you about that are upward of 18 to 20% interest, you would be able to double your money in roughly 3 years, 3 to 4 years, but not 1 year. So when someone promises you a 100% return in 1 year, the math itself isn't the crazy part. It's the achieving that return in 10 times the historical average of the stock market. And it doesn't happen by accident. And it certainly doesn't happen safely. It requires taking on a level of risk where the line between investing and pure gambling becomes incredibly blurred. And this is where we enter the dark side of the 1 year double fantasy that people talk about. It's a world filled with two kinds of danger: the outright scams designed to steal your money, and the legit but terrifyingly risky strategies that are just likely to wipe you out. So before we even get to the real ways that you could try to double your money, we have to walk through a minefield of traps. So the promise of doubling your money in a year is the number one bait, the number one bait used by the financial scammers. They get your desire for a shortcut. Everybody wants a shortcut. I encourage the long way. I encourage you guys to build a 20-year plan. A 20-year plan is not going to make you a millionaire by the end of this year. Matter of fact, since we're creeping into 2026, a 20-year plan would have you reach the level of success that you're striving for by 2046. Okay. But these people have perfected the art of exploiting the desire for shortcuts. So let's break down the anatomy of a get rich quick scheme, because once you see the formula, you can spot them a mile away. First, they have the promise of high returns with little to no risk at all. This is the biggest red flag in finance, because in the real world, risk and return are permanently tied together. The higher the risk, the higher the possibility of a return, of the value of return. And this is known as the risk return trade-off. The only way to even have a shot at a higher return is to accept a higher possibility of loss. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either lying or selling something. Guaranteed profits, secret algorithm, can't lose system. These are all classic scam phrases. Second, they create extreme urgency, and you see it all the time. You'll see things like limited time offer, only 3 spots left. This disappears tonight, or the government will shut it down soon. This isn't because the opportunity is so good. It's a trick to get you to stop thinking and start panic clicking. If you believe that this opportunity is only available right now, and if you don't jump on this opportunity right now, you'll miss out on the opportunity, then you'll, fear of missing out, dive into it. But the only thing that was really short-lived was that fishing knife with the CO2 cartridge, because you could stab an object and then push the button and it would inject CO2, freezing the internal organs of the object that you stab, which could potentially cause the object to implode. And if this is used on a human, it is guaranteed to take them out. It is not a scenario where, they might just have serious injury. It's not like a self-defense tool. It's a calculated thought, because you don't just stab the person. You stab the person and then you have to push the button, which, depending on how you hold it, you would have to stab them and push the button, where it would be injecting CO2 through the wound, which would inherently take the person out, which is really, when you think about it, a level of premeditated to carry a weapon like that sole purpose and design is to eliminate. It takes away from the mindset of self-defense. That device was taken off the market in a lot of areas. It is still available in rare locations and not sold online. It is something that you would have to go pick up in person from certain dive shops that still sell it. That would probably require your driver's license or state ID passport for picking up such an item. But when it was being sold, even that item did not say limited time. It just said, oh, go get it, because this is the last knife you'll ever need. And I mean, when it comes down to stabbing stuff, they're right. But it's a one-time usage scenario. You push the button, it injects all the CO2 out of the CO2 cartridge into the object that you stab, and that was it. Then you got to change the CO2 cartridge. So can you stab like multiple targets with it? No. But you also got to think about people who panic click in scenarios like this. They don't want you doing research. They don't want you to take the time to think about this and mow it over with your husband or your wife, or talk about it with your family or your friends before you decide to take the action. They want you to act on pure emotion, specifically the fear of missing out. If an investment is truly that good, it will still be good tomorrow, next week, next month, when you get enough money to do it. Third, a deliberate lack of transparency. They love showing off the results. Flashy cars, expensive watches, or screenshots of trading accounts that are easily faked, but ask them how it works, and they get incredibly vague. They'll use confusing jargon or talk about proprietary software without ever explaining the strategy. That's because the strategy doesn't exist. Their real business isn't the investment itself. It's getting you to pay for their course or deposit money into their shady, unregulated platform. These scams are everywhere. Forex bots, crypto pump and dump groups on Telegram, masterminds that hold mastermind courses that are just stuff you could have found out for free by coming to this podcast, if not looking it up yourself. They prey on hope and leave behind financial devastation because notice, they usually go on tour. They pick you out of the internet. You can't find them off after the commercial. You show up at one of the major hotels in your neighborhood, and they're only doing the show for 3 days, and then after that, they're off to a new city. Worse than a gypsy performance. Now, let's move past the scams and talk about real risk. Now, let's say you want to try a legit, hyper-aggressive strategy. This is where the emotional terror begins. The risk-return trade-off isn't just a textbook concept. It is a gut-wrenching, visceral experience. With a diversified long-term portfolio, you might see your account move 1% in a day. It's noticeable, but you can handle it. When you're using strategies that could genuinely double your money in a year, you're dealing with swings of 20%, 30%, even 50% in a single day or a single hour. So imagine putting $10,000 of your money into one of these plays. One morning you wake up, you're at 15,000. The euphoria is insane. You feel like a genius. The next day you check and your account is at $6,000. Your stomach drops. Panic sets in. Do you sell and cut your losses? Do you hold and pray for it to come back up? Remember, we just talked about SMX went from $34 to $340, but it settled at $260. If you think about how you only bought in at 34 and you're now at 260, if you didn't sell at 340, you could sell at 260. But the fact that when you saw it at 340, you missed the opportunity to sell, and now it's at 260 and you're down 90, 80 in comparison to what you could have gotten per share. Per share. Crazy, right? But this emotional roller coaster is where most people get destroyed. They buy high on greed and sell low on fear, which is the opposite of the math required to turn over a profit. The stress is crushing. It can wreck your mentality and compromise your mental health and your relationships, especially when you're arguing with your spouse about your trading decisions. The people who brag about their one big win never tell you about the 10 devastating losses that came first. Donald Trump being a multi-billionaire at over $4 billion happened through 6 bankruptcies, which means that he failed 6 times before succeeding. And you got to understand, bankruptcy isn't that he lost all of his money. Bankruptcy is that he had to consolidate his losses, and then he had to regroup and expand. Now, the one thing they also don't tell you is the anxiety that they live with throughout the bankruptcies, throughout the devastating losses. They don't tell you about all of that. They just tell you that now things are successful. The terrifying truth is that for every person who successfully pulls this off, they are hundreds, maybe thousands, who lost most of, if not all of their money trying to do this, double their money inside of 12 months scenario. The internet amplifies the wins and buries the failures. No one makes a YouTube video titled "How I Lost My Life Savings on a speculative stock option." They don't do that. But those stories are far more common than anyone would ever know. So as we go into the next section, remember this. This is not a how-to guide. This is a beware guide. So we are now leaving the world of investing to entering the casino of investments. A quick and very serious disclaimer now. This is for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not a level of financial advice. So don't come to me if I told you the better way to go about doing this and you didn't listen. These are exceptional high risk strategies that carry a high and very substantial chance of losing everything. And most people who try these steps might lose a lot, if not all of it. So do not use money that you cannot afford to lose to invest in opportunities such as these, because this section here is to show you what it actually takes to chase that 100% return and why it is so dangerous to attempt in the first place. Even though the dividend rotation strategy could get you up to 168% return, in actual practice, you see yourself gaining potentially between 40 and 75%. Still not doubling your money inside of 12 months. All right, now with that being said, I want to make sure that you guys, I remind you guys to make sure that you like and subscribe and keep mashing those reaction buttons, because we have a lot of information here that's going to help you guys with your capabilities to make yourself successful. Now let's look at the tools of the higher risk speculator. And we're going to talk about first is to throw diversification out the window, which I would never recommend, but this is one way to do it. Diversification spreads your money out. And this is the only free lunch in investing because it lowers your risks. A concentrated bet is the opposite. It's putting a huge chunk of your money into a single highly speculative stock and praying that it skyrockets like XMX did. Not what we normally would expect. And we're not talking about buying a blue chip stock like Apple or Tesla. This strategy means diving into the wild, wild west of the market, such as penny stocks. These are stocks trading for less than $5 a share. They are typically from small, unproven companies, and the space is notorious for being illiquid and rife with pump and dump schemes all over the place. While a penny stock can jump 1,000% on good news, it's far more likely to go to zero with bad news. Biotech stocks. These companies live and die by the results of clinical trials and FDA approvals. If a small biotech company announces a breakthrough, its stock can multiply overnight. But if its trial fails, the stock can lose 90% of its value in minutes. So you're not investing in a business, you're betting on a scientific outcome. Turnaround stories. This is betting on a company near bankruptcy, hoping for a miraculous recovery. Now, if you're right, the returns can be massive. If you're wrong, the statistically likely outcome, the company goes under and your shares become worthless, making A concentrated bet like this is like going all in on a single hand of poker. You might have done your research, but you're ultimately at the mercy of the cards. If a stock bet is like poker, options trading is like betting on a single spin at the roulette wheel that's also on fire. Options are contracts that give you the right, but not the obligation, to buy or sell a stock at a set price by a certain date. Now, the big draw here is leverage. For a small fee called a premium, you can control a large number of shares. For example, instead of paying $10,000 to buy 100 shares of a stock that is $100 a stock, you might buy an option contract controlling those same shares for just $200. If the stock moves your way, your percentage gains can be massive. If that $100 stock goes up just 5%, your $200 option might jump to $400, which is a 100% gain. But here's the terrifying part. Options have expiration dates. If the stock doesn't move how you want it to, when you want it to, your option can expire worthless. That $200 premium you paid is gone, which is a loss of 100%. Now, some people use option trading by getting in on the other person's bet, where they put up the $200. You're betting that it's not going to work, so you accept the $200. And if you're right, this trade expires worthless, and you get to keep the $200. Where one person can lose it all, the other person can gain everything. And for a speculative, short-dated option held to expirations, this is a very common outcome. So you're fighting the clock because your option loses a tiny bit of value every single day that passes. No talk about high risk investing is complicated or complete without the complications of talking about that cryptocurrency, which is what Jolin was talking about a moment ago. While Bitcoin and Ethereum are more established, the real double your money plays happen in wilder corners of the crypto market. So we're talking about altcoins or meme coins like the Doge coin or the Trump coin. These are often created as jokes or based on internet trends, and they are wildly volatile. A meme coin can go up 10,000% in a week, fueled by social media hype. But the market is largely unregulated and filled with scams and rug pulls that happen quite often. So where developers just vanish with everyone's money typically ends up being the outcome, just like the Haktua girl who was involved in one of these meme coin situations, and somebody dumped a bunch of money in and then pumped a bunch of money back out, and everyone lost their money. She got sued. And I think she went to jail for that. For every coin that moves, thousands crash to zero. So you're not really investing. You're hoping you can sell to a greater fool than you were before the music stops. Yeah. Leverage means using borrowed money to amplify your potential returns. A broker might offer you a 10-to-1 or even 100-to-1 leverage, meaning for every dollar you have, you can control 100 in the market. The appeal is obvious. If you have $1,000 and the market moves up 1%, you make $10. With 100-to-1 leverage, that same 1% move makes your $1,000 double. The danger here, however, is catastrophic. Leverage magnifies loss just as powerfully. So with a 100-to-1 leverage, if the market moves against you by just 1%, your entire investment is wiped out. You lose everything, because the same way you gain 100-to-1, you also lose 100-to-1. And you're also subject to margin calls, where your broker demands more money to cover the losses, or they're forcibly selling your position at the worst possible time. Using high leverage is like walking a tightrope over a canyon. One wrong step is fatal. Finally, there's starting a business, not a slow growth, a brick and mortar shop, but a high risk scabble venture. Think drop shipping, a trending TikTok product, or launching a simple app. The potential for a 100% return is real. You could invest $5,000 in ads and inventory and turn it into a $10,000 profit. But the failure rate for new businesses is incredibly high. You're risking your capital, your time, and your energy on one big bet. So there you have it. 5 legitimate but incredibly risky paths. They all share a high probability of failure and the potential for catastrophic financial and emotional pain. Now, if the thought of losing everything on one single trade makes your stomach churn, but you still want to build serious, life-changing wealth, then, like I told you guys earlier, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, because the next section, we're leaving the casino behind to talk about the smarter path, the one that actually works. Now, we've spent a lot of time on the treacherous act of trying to double your money in 1 year. Now let's talk about how to get rich for sure. Not just get rich quick. These strategies might not be as sexy, but they are the proven time-tested methods that have built lasting wealth for millions. Now, this path of the intelligent investor is not the same path as a gambler. The boring secret weapon is a 401k match. For those of you who have one, if you work for a company that offers a 401k with an employer match, you have access to one of the best returns you will ever see. Also, if you are a small business owner and you invest in your employees and you're assigned, if it's a C corporation and you're assigned as an employee, from the perspective of your business, you can pay yourself into your 401k, and from the perspective of the employee, you can pay yourself into the 401k, and from the perspective of the business, any tax deductions that you get for paying that investment opportunity and paying the salary of your employees is going to come off of the overhead of your business, while you're able to recoup the extra money from your 401k as a personal person. But no money that you can get from an entity that you built can be utilized if you don't make the money from the entity. So you have to make more money for the entity in order to do this, if you were the business. But if you're working for somebody as a W-2 worker and they're willing to match whatever you put down, they're going to match that up to a specific amount. It's the closest thing to free money in all of finance. A common match is dollar for dollar up to, say, 5% of your salary. If you contribute 5% of your salary, your employer puts another 5%. You have just made an immediate guaranteed 100% return on your money before it has even been invested for the day. Not taking this match is like setting cash on fire. It should be your absolute first financial priority. The power of not losing is going to be the next thing we're going to deal with, because you're going to be paying off high interest debt. The next thing here is investments. To make a pretty decent investment is paying off any high interest debt that you have, especially on credit cards and loans that you have, revolving loans. That's one of the reasons why Michael was saying that he's glad that he's debt free. But being debt free don't mean that you're rich. It doesn't mean that you're financially stable. It just means that you don't own anybody. You don't owe anybody anything. So when we think about paying off high interest debts, we don't usually think of this as an investment. But mathematically, it's one of the best moves that you can make. Think about it. If you have a credit card with a 22% annual percentage yield, that debt is costing you 20% every year. When you pay off that balance, you are effectively earning a 22% return on your money. And unlike investment returns, this return is completely tax-free. And most importantly, it's a guarantee. You would be incredibly hard pressed to find any legitimate stock, bond, or real estate investment that can offer you a guaranteed risk-free 22% return. Yet people carry this debt while gambling on the stock market, hoping for a 10% return. It's a financial madness. Before you trade your growth or your wealth, you have to plug the holes that are sinking your financial ship. Anything that's taking money out of your finances. Now, since you've claimed your 100% from your 401k return and matched that, you're guaranteed 20% return from killed debt. It's time to put your money to work in the single greatest wealth building machine ever created, the stock market. But you do it by becoming an owner of the entire market, not by gambling on single stocks. But you can follow us with the ones that we have curated, select stocks that are undervalued with excessive dividend payout that would aid you in your ability to skyrocket. But just for a broad spectrum scale, you could do this by constantly investing in a low cost or broader market index fund, such as an ETF. And that one would be the S&P 500 index, for instance. It lets you own a tiny piece of 500 of the largest companies in the United States in a single purchase. Instead of betting on one horse, you'd be betting on the whole race. Now, this strategy is powerful because it's diversified and is cheap and has proven track records. So the key is consistency. You invest a set amount every single month, which is a practice called dollar cost average. When the market is up, you buy. When the market is down, you buy. And you get more for your money. You take emotion out of the equation and trust the long-term growth of the economy. This is boring, but this strategy is legendary. And investors like Warren Buffett recommend for most people this type of method because it works. Now, want to know the fastest, most reliable way to double your investment returns? It's not by taking more risk, it's by investing twice as much money. Your savings has a rate, the percentage of your income you save and invest. Is the most powerful lever you have. You can spend years trying to eke out an extra 1 to 2% return from the market, or you can focus your energy on increasing your income and finding more to invest in. This could mean developing new skills for promotion, starting a side hustle to generate more revenue, or negotiating your salary to get a pay raise. Every dollar you invest is a dollar that starts compounding for you. So going from a 10% to a 20% savings rate will have a far better impact on your wealth than trying to pick the next hot stock. The 95-5 rule a safer way to speculate. I get it. Look, the allure of that high risk, high reward bet is strong. So if you absolutely have to scratch that itch, do it with a plan. A popular framework of the 95-5 rule is probably one of the better ways to go about it. You put 95% of your portfolio into the safe, boring, long-term strategies that we've just talked about, like the low index funds. It is the core of your wealth. You're going to protect that. Then with the 5% remaining investment opportunity, and only 5%, you can speculate. This is your casino money. Use it to buy a bit of crypto, an individual stock, try an option, but you don't do it knowing that this money is going to turn massive profits. You do it in a fashion where you know this money could go to zero, disappear. And if it does, your long-term financial plan is still perfectly safe. This gives you the best of both worlds. Solid foundation of wealth with a few lottery tickets on the side. The desire to double your money in a year is totally understandable. It's a desire for the shortcut to a better life. And while it's technically possible with high-stakes strategies we covered earlier in the night show, it's not investing the way that would build you long-term guaranteed growth. Instead, it's gambling. And the odds are heavily stacked against you in those scenarios. That's the path that is full of scams, stress, and very high chances of major loss. The real sustainable path to wealth isn't about one heroic year. It's about a series of smart, consistent decisions over many years. It's about getting your 401k match, paying off high interest debts, investing in broad market stocks, and month after month, year after year, putting your money in the same place or the same places so that you can see that final outcome expand. It's about focusing on your savings rates, not chasing crazy returns. The goal isn't to get rich quick. The goal is to get rich for sure. It's about building a future where your financial security isn't left to chance, but is built deliberately, brick by boring brick. So if tonight's show gives you a new perspective, subscribe for more no-nonsense advice that cuts through all the hype. Let me know in the comment sections, what is the craziest get-rich scheme you've ever heard of or actually participated in? Now, I want to go on by saying thank you guys for coming to this and that. And ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you guys this information to help y'all become higher value men, but it takes your efforts to make the changes in your life that you know need to be changed. And ladies, while this is a male-driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can take this information and help yourselves become higher value women. All it requires is for you to find the things inside of your control that you can improve, and then navigate yourself around the things that you cannot change while working on the things that are within your control to improve. This way, at the end of the day, you will be more satisfied with the way your life is in comparison to what it used to be. So one more time, I want to thank you guys for coming to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.
network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision, cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield to mediocrity and chaos. I will never yield.